Hello, it's the second look. It's John Gibbons hosting this week, and I'm joined by Damian, Kavanagh and by Josh Sexton to look back on another Liverpool win. There were a lot of Liverpool wins at the moment. It was Liverpool's 18th consecutive Premier League victory, 21st at Anfield, and I mean, it was mad just being behind for a bit, wasn't it, Damian?
Yeah.
Because that's this run has been so incredible that when they had the audacity to take the lead, I'd say the Coppers affronted.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I tell you what, it was like it must have been like how everybody else feels, doesn't it? You know, but what a run! I mean, what a run to celebrate! 18 wins in a row, and how many wins at Anfield now, and undefeated at Anfield in all this time, and breaking records. It's sensational, isn't it? Last night didn't really go along with the usual script, did it? Usually we just come out and demolish teams and then really demolish them just after half time. So it was unusual. Fair play to West Ham for giving the fans a little bit more than what they have been getting lately. But we got there even when we're crap, we're great, aren't we? You know, it's still 70% possession. You're looking at it through the lens of the world champions against a team that looks like it's going to get relegated, so you're expecting it to be a cakewalk. It wasn't that. If West Ham had got something out of the game, I wouldn't have denied them that given the circumstances. But we did enough to win again, and it's the sign of champions, which is what we are.
Yeah, I found a good stat. There's a few stats from up to Joe today that I'm going to use. So thanks to Joe for that. Not sure he's a real fella.
No.
That this season we've been winning for 53% of the minutes played and losing for 8. So basically, over the half the time when you're watching Liverpool, they're already winning, which is just really nice. But also, as I say, they went in that sort of 8% that we had 20 minutes of it where the other team were winning, and I don't know. It felt so unusual.
It's weird though, isn't it? Because even in the sort of 8% when you're losing, or however many percent there's left when you draw, and you're still just thinking, well, we're going to win, aren't we? That's the weird thing about watching this Liverpool team. You sort of sat in the ground. I was sat in the ground last night, and we go 2-1 down, and you just think, well, when do we score? Like, what minute are we going to score, and are we going to be able to get another one after that kind of thing? And how many do we then get in the end? When the fourth went in last night, I know obviously got disallowed in the end, but I was just thinking, well, it was only a matter of time, that wasn't it, before West Ham tired a bit and Liverpool really put the foot on the gas. So I think that's one of the sort of strange things about watching this team. Probably one of the things that you take for granted a little bit almost is that, when you do go behind, or when a game does get a bit interesting, when the opposition gives Liverpool a bit of something, puts it up a bit, Liverpool just go, well, Sam, we're just going to win anyway.
Yeah, it's like that.
It's the belief, isn't it? And it's the belief to keep going. And, a lot of the players kind of, showed that on the pitch. Yeah. But I thought, in particular, Chamberlain made a big difference when he came on. Just his purpose, just his energy, and it was drive. I think Klopp said after the game he gave us direction. Yeah. Damian.
He breaks the lines, doesn't he? He just offers something different. You've got fantastic goalkeeper, fantastic defence. Everyone knows how mobile the attack is. But in the midfield, it just tends to be workaholics all the time with the usual lads. But that Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, he's just got that ability to break a line, go forward, take a shot, and it just while you're covering all your bases and while you've got your hands full with this unbelievable attacking three, and while you've got your hands full then with these fullbacks which turn an attacking three into an attacking 5, someone else comes forward, and it's just eventually with all these different options and all these things going on, it's just so hard for teams to cover every single base all the time. And I just want to see that lad get a run of games. I'd love to see him get a run of 10 games or something like that, playing in his favourite position, not being injured and given an opportunity, because I think he's the perfect player that we've got in that role.
I think it's his shooting as well, because when he came on last night and he took that first shot from about 35 yards, I sort of thought, I wonder whether he's going to come on and do his sort of best Phil Coutinho impression. But what you don't realise is because as Damian says, he breaks the line from midfield and then he has a shot while he's still behind the attacking players. What he's doing then is encouraging the defence to sort of come out to close him down. So that's when you can get a bit more space for the attacking players. Whereas when you think back to the way Coutinho used to use the ball and shoot, he'd either be the left-hand side of the attacking 3 anyway, or he'd be ahead of all the attackers to take his shot.
But he gave that option there with regard to him being, like you say, as he goes to shoot, he's very accurate and he's very dangerous. The opposition, be really nervous about him anywhere 25 yards out. But the fact that they got to close him, he's good at looking for his mates as well, isn't he? He's good at looking for Trent on the other side. And so that in itself, the fact that he could shoot, even though if he doesn't, it opens the play somewhere else just at that angle.
Damian mentioned there, Josh, that the West Ham players gave the fans a little bit more than what we've seen recently, certainly against Man City, where they just sort of didn't compete. Do you think that's a reflection of of them approaching it differently, or do you think Liverpool were maybe allowed them into it a little bit much, or do you think it was just a case of they've gone to Man City, they've seen that's not worked at all, we might as well try something different? I guess what I'm saying is, how much do you think was West Ham doing good things, or how much do you think Liverpool, maybe our intensity wasn't right and allowed them?
I think it was probably a combination of the two. I think if you're a team like West Ham, you're probably going into that City game almost expecting defeat, and then when you do actually get beaten, you realise that losing's actually rubbish. So I think you've got to realise these football players at the end of the day, human beings, are obviously sort of superhuman at times, but they are just human beings. So they'd have been hurt after that Manchester City game and hurt by the sort of, the feedback that they got from it as well. And I imagine they'd have come into this Liverpool game thinking, well, there's no pressure on us, no one's expecting us to win. We've got a chance of getting a scalp here. Liverpool never lose at Anfield, and to sort of give Liverpool a really good go, and they caught Liverpool on a bit of a bad day, and in a bit of a bad sort of, I don't know if you call it a run of form, because look, Liverpool are still winning games, but in terms of performances since we got back from the break, it's not sort of been up to Liverpool's standard from earlier in the season. So I think it was probably just a combination of the two, which meant that West Ham did manage to get their way for a bit, but then, as I say, Liverpool managed to come out on top in the end.
Yeah, I conceded 2 goals in the game, Damian. I think it was 1 in the 11 previous to that. So do you think it was a case of, a bit of bad defending, or do you think it was one of those where look, sometimes you're going to concede a couple of goals? Well,
the first goal comes from 3 corners on the bounce, doesn't it? And you think with 3 corners, I mean, usually there's more chance of us scoring a goal from corner we concede. That's statistically the case, isn't it? And okay, it was just one of those nights. I think Liverpool started well. If you look at the first 10 minutes and they get the goal, it all looks like it's going to be a 5-0, doesn't it? Then West Ham come back into the game, and maybe there's a bit of complacency from Liverpool. And like you say, West Ham, I think the background with West Ham is the fact that the fan base are really annoyed. And I was talking to a couple of West Ham fans last night, and they were absolutely despondent. And so there must have been a lot of pressure on those players to really pay them back at some point. And if they just really raise their game to the best possible way they can, and Liverpool open up well and think they're going to win, maybe there's a question of just a little bit of complacency, which, if that's been the case, it's been a good way of learning a lesson by still winning. And the players will know that they haven't reached the heights. The players will know that they haven't played as well as they could. And they'll know if they want to retain the European Cup, they're going to have to get these standards back, and quick. So sometimes, they kick up the backside when you even win. To be a bit negative about it is positive in one sense, as long as we don't go over the top.
I mentioned about the West Ham players being human there, and I think for some of them there was quite a lot of sort of pride in that, because I noticed before the game I was sort of sat in the upper main stand up above the away fans, and when they had all the black balloons that start doing their sort of protest against the owners, Declan Rice, Mark Noble and Robert Snodgrass all run over and sort of give them a round of applause to sort of say, like, nice one for travelling, like almost like we know the circumstances of the club at the moment aren't ideal, but we're going to put on our best show for you. And to be fair, I thought they did that, as Damian said. They could have got something from the game, and we sort of couldn't really bat an eyelid at it, but Liverpool did it in the end.
Liverpool did do it in the end. After the break, we're going to talk about Liverpool's fullbacks, because, I mean, why wouldn't you? They're absolutely brilliant. But I'm just going to do a little quick insert here where I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about the impact that Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain had. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain substitute and how it changed how we played, how it made us more attacking, and we talked a little bit in the first half about the direction he added to Liverpool, but I just want to talk a bit about his position and what he kind of added to Liverpool's attack. So this on the board right now is the average position of each player in the first half. So this is where they received the ball. So what StatsBomb does is it looks at every pass in the game and looks at where the player's standing, where they receive the ball and where they pass it. So this is the average position. So you've got your 2 centre halves here. These are the 3 midfielders. Your full-backs are always higher up than the midfield, so the defenders nominally, but they're always higher up in more or less every game. It might be different one day if we go away to Barcelona or something like that, but generally speaking, your full-backs are always forward. And what's interesting very much now, our Liverpool play is our number 9 is deeper than both of the wide forwards in terms of average position. That is usual now for Liverpool as well. So he might be a number 9, but he is, we always need to remember, on average, deeper than those 2. It's more of a false 9, really, allowing those 2 to attack and get as many goals as they do. So I want to focus on this midfield. So what you'll see is it's actually fairly flat. So a lot of the talk when Keita came into the team was about his attacking ability, about what he was going to be able to do with this foundation that Fabinho and Wijnaldum do provide. But what the statistics show that actually in the first game is that Keita was in more of a flat 3, really. So it was more of a a midfield three, Wijnaldum on the left, him on the right, and Fabinho only slightly deeper there, which might surprise people a little bit. So obviously the midfield against Atletico came under a little bit of criticism. There's a bit of a feeling that when Henderson, Wijnaldum and Fabinho play, there's not quite that spark there, there's not quite that player who's breaking the lines, who's getting forward. But Keita came in and it was more of the same. In fact, if we look at the second half, now we've only got sort of 15 or so minutes of data for Keita, but if we look at the second half, his average position was actually in our own half, which is crazy to think. He's the deepest on average of our three midfielders, and he's gone into his own half. Is he going into his shell? Is it a confidence thing? Is he coming deep to kind of come and get the ball and get involved? I'll leave that for you to decide, but it is very interesting that he was the deepest of our three midfielders in the second half. Maybe why Jurgen Klopp decided to take him off, because he wasn't getting from him what he wanted and what we all want from Naby Keita. Then he goes off, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain comes on, and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, his average position in that second half is there. Almost identical to Mo Salah. So that's, you're talking 25 yards there further up the pitch, where Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain is getting and receiving the ball to what Naby Keita was doing in the same half of football. He's almost as attacking as Mo Salah. Andy Robertson's up here, by the way, second half, which is absolutely insane, but we'll talk about that another day. But yeah, so Chamberlain, from there for Naby Keita in the second half, average position, right up to there for Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. He gave us impetus, he gave us attacking play, and I thought he helped turn the game around. Okay, we're back in the room with Damian and Josh, and as I said just before, Josh, I do want to talk about these fullbacks, because it's often said that with this Liverpool, we need to remember how special this is, we need to remember how special this team is, and what they're doing isn't normal. And I think that's the case for the fullbacks as well. I think we've just gotten so used to these incredible numbers that we're posting that it's just, you know, oh, that's what fullbacks do, that's what our fullbacks do, but it's not what fullbacks do. Do you know what I mean? Trent Alexander-Arnold last night equalled his own Premier League record for number of assists in a season, which is 12. That's the record for any defender in the Premier League area. It's his record from last season. He's equalled it in February. Another two. He could have had the third, but it was offside. Just him in particular, what he's doing at the moment, unreal. Yeah,
I find the coverage of our fullbacks sort of quite interesting, because I think there's a general sort of widespread acknowledgement that they are right at the top of their game. They're really helping this Liverpool team. They're crucial to everything this Liverpool team's doing. But I don't really hear many people refer to them as world class. And I sort of think about, you know, what is a world class fullback? What is a world class player? And people would instantly think about Dani Alves's and Marcelo's from years gone by, and almost write Andy Robertson and Trent off because they're not those types of players. But I think they're the best around in the world at the moment. I think Andy Robertson is probably the best left back in the world. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold is the best right back in the world. So I think you have to say they're world class, and you have to sort of appreciate what they're bringing to this Liverpool team, which is the European champions, the best in Europe, is the best in the world champions. So if they're two players that are so crucial to a team who've got that reputation, then they're surely world class.
Okay, so I've got a little quiz for you. So Trent Alexander-Arnold, he's got to 25 assists now. He's the third youngest player in the Premier League era to get to 25 assists. So do you know who's younger than him? 1 and 2.
I've got a bit of a spoiler for this because of the question you asked me in the office before. So I think I'm going to have to leave these to Damian.
I haven't got it. This isn't my area of strength here. I haven't got it. I don't know. Who'd be younger than that? But that many? No idea.
Sam, do you want to help? One of them's an Arsenal player.
Reyes.
No, Cesc Fabregas. I had a chat to Josh about Cesc Fabregas when I looked
Who does Cesc Fabregas play for?
He's currently at Monaco. I asked Josh. I was looking up Cesc Fabregas just to see if he's still playing. You forget how young Cesc Fabregas was when he broke into that Arsenal team in a mile race. It was Wayne Rooney is the other one who's
he was the only one I was thinking it could be because of how young he was when he burst onto the scene. I think the point about the world class thing, I think you're bang on. I've never seen a pair of fullbacks like this. This is really reinventing the fullback role, isn't it? And no one's got anywhere near catching these two up. I mean, like I say, we've got such a great attacking three that these are overloading it into a 5, and the opposition must, it's like, well, if they show them inside, they can do some damage. If they show them outside, they can do some damage. How quickly they whip the crosses over, the energy off them. It's just the dimension that they're bringing to us. In the past we've had, we'd have like Steve Nicol or something like that. Or Phil Neal was a good attacking fullback, and it'd be like, well, one can go forward today because there's a weakness on that side, but that's about it. But these two, these two are really making it, stretching the game as far as they can, confident on the ball. You can give them it with the back to goal, but by anybody under pressure. I'm just spellbound, really. I think in the fact of this is the key position and the key area that's turning Liverpool from an excellent team and a team that could win the league and could win the European Cup into a genuine world-class, one of the greatest teams of all time. The thing that's the difference between Liverpool being in that area is the difference between two good, competent fullbacks and this pair. This pair are giving Liverpool an angle that nobody else has got.
Yeah, it's just the 7 Premier League assists for Andy Robertson, slacking a little bit. It's still the joint 4th highest in the Premier League for anyone at the moment. And it's interesting what you said there, Josh, because about how we regard, in particular, Andy Robertson and how he's regarded sort of in world football. Because I don't know if you saw the interview he did with, I think it was Oliver Holt in the Daily Mail last week, where he's talking about the fact that, he actually mentions that he regrets the incident with Messi a bit, and he sort of doesn't really like sort of how he's thought about in some way, and it seemed to me that what he was getting at, although he didn't want to say it, was stop just saying these things. I'm really good at football, and that seemed to me the sort of the undercurrent, if you like, of this interview was that maybe Andy Robertson's getting a little bit fed up that everyone's saying, oh yeah, he's a good lad, he runs a lot, he's aggressive, he's a bit of a narc, and he's maybe just wants the people to go, yeah, and you know what, he's brilliant at footy, because he is.
It's this sort of cult hero thing that we've got about footballers, isn't it?
It can be a bit of a
it's a backhanded compliment, isn't it, calling someone a cult hero, because you're basically saying, if you're part of a cult and you're a hero, then it's sort of, you're like a bit of a niche, you're like a guilty pleasure almost.
Yeah.
You're not you won't get the widespread recognition that you deserve. But I think if from Liverpool fans' point of view, Andy Robertson gets that, and I think the things we talk about him being a narc and about the incident with Messi and stuff, they're almost like extra redeeming qualities on top of everything else that he gives you. I think among Liverpool fans there is that widespread appreciation, but I think on the outside there's probably going to be opposition fans who are starting to grow a bit of an almost a hatred for him because he's one of them players which makes the game so tough for you if you are an opposition player, and he likes to sort of mix it, he likes to get out with people and stuff like that. So I think he shouldn't really shy away from that sort of reputation, because I think it will all feed into, when he does eventually retire and he's got all these medals, people will just say he was a relentless competitor as much as anything.
Yeah, it's remembering what makes him a good human, Damian, and remembering what makes him a good footballer. So I'm glad, his humility that he shows all the time, the way he talks, the way that when you speak to him, he's just like a normal lad, is great. But that shouldn't detract from what a supremely talented footballer he is.
You're spot on, yeah. I mean, you couldn't have explained that any better. He's everything you'd want from a left-back. Absolutely everything. And it's not a question of just being a hard case or being a hard worker or anything like that. The contribution he makes, he's a genuine threat for any team, and the partnership that he's got with Sadio there on that side. Yeah. There isn't a better partnership on the left-hand side of any team, international club team at the moment, and he's fully part of that. So if he's worried about his reputation, about people not recognising how good they are, well, people aren't looking. Because that lad there is as good as anything you could ever wish to see. And I think these two players, and they haven't got the right to say it yet, but if they continue at this level of performance, when you talk in 10 years' time, if you're talking about the all-time Liverpool team, there's both fullbacks right now. Yeah,
no defender in English football has got more assists since Andy Robertson moved to Hull, and that is a fact. And if you think about the strikers that he was supplying at Hull, it is an amazing statistic. Just to sort of finish up a little bit, boys, on sort of what next for this team, really. They seem like there's no let up, and that's what I really like about them, Damian, is that we're all saying, oh, it's done, do you know what I mean? We're talking about dates where we'd like to do it. They just keep winning, they're just relentless, and even when the level drops a little bit, like it did I think it's fair to say last night for a while, they've got that in them to step up and get over the line. Yeah,
like I was saying before about them, being a bit hard on themselves even though they've won. I like that, that chasing of perfection. I think it was really well reflected in the recent loss and Atletico. When Jürgen's sort of smiling on telly saying, well, okay, you've got an atmosphere here, but welcome to Anfield. But in the aftermatch interview, you've got Robertson, who was snarling money, couldn't wait to get back at them. And then Virgil very calmly is going, well, we've got 90 minutes to put this right. And in a season where they're breaking all kinds of records, and they already have a European Cup winners medal, the fact that the characters I've just mentioned there are showing a steely determination to say, well, we're not accepting getting beat 1-0 in that cauldron there against an experienced European team. We're gonna have them as well. And that whole attitude seems to be there about driving them on in every game. And it's got to be, like you say, that's a tremendous statistics you were talking about before, about how little time
Yeah.
they're actually behind, because they just really take it as an insult going down. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, we're better than you.
Yeah.
You know, and they've got that belief. And what they've done at Anfield with the crowd and the crowd, because of you could call it 30 years ahead, to call, you know, another team's catchphrase who I'm not keen on. But you know, the crowd would be nervous, and because it can get so near and yet so far on a number of occasions, Liverpool's crowd could get anxious if the team wasn't winning. And what Jurgen's done, and de facto what his players have done, they've calmed the crowd down. And like you say, last night, you know, you just said there, we've gone behind by a couple of goals. Well, we've got plenty. You look at the clock and you go, there's ages left yet. And you know what's coming, don't you?
Yeah.
And that is the true sign of, you know, that makes the complete. This turns an attractive team and an excellent team into a truly great team. And, you know, the statistics, you know, they're just not lying, are they? But it's just an absolute pleasure at the moment. What they're giving us, and then the crowd can be calm, and then the crowd can give as well. It's just it's all feeding each other, and it's down to Jurgen, isn't it?
It's down to the big man indeed. Thanks a lot for checking out this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. Share it around with your friends. These are obviously shareable at the moment on YouTube, so yeah, do let people know what they're missing. But thanks to the boys, and thanks to Joe for writing me show up the Reds.